Hello, friends. This is Dorie Clark with our weekly Newsweek interview show, Better. And today's topic is knowing when to quit. The reason that we are talking about knowing when to quit is that our guest this week is Annie Duke, who is a professional poker player and the author of the book, Quit, The Power of Knowing When to Walk Away. However, Annie Duke is not here. She may have quit this interview. We'll find out. But she hopefully is going to be joining us imminently, and I look forward to welcoming her on. But in the meantime, I will talk to you about quitting, and I would love to hear your thoughts and comments and observations about it as well. So please, if you are tuning in and joining us live, type into the chat box and let us know who you are and where you are dialing in from, because I would love to see who you are, and also to take any of your questions or hear your observations about quitting. So this is a topic that, of course, has been in the news a lot in the past year or two with the Great Resignation. We are thinking about quitting in terms of jobs, in terms of life priorities. What should you be doing? What should you be spending your time on? But also, quitting is an interesting concept because it doesn't just apply to the big macro issues in our lives, like what is your job that you're having. Also, quitting refers to a lot of things. It could be a particular project. It could be a particular approach. It could even be a relationship. Who knows? And so as a result, we are having to face on a constant basis the question of, should we keep going or should we not? And this is something that I actually talk about a lot in my book, The Long Game, How to Be a Long-Term Thinker in a Short-Term World. Because in between, this is the problem, right? In between deciding to do something and actually shifting over to accomplishing it, there is, for any meaningful goal, right, there's usually a gap of time. It could be a week, it could be a month, it could be a year, it could even be more. It could be a 10-year goal, for instance. And the longer that tunnel is, the more time you have to question yourself and to say, wow, is this working or is this not working yet? And that's the hard part, right? Because we want to quit, if we're going to quit, at the right time. No one wants to be the sucker that is pursuing something too long and is wasting effort. But it's equally true that you don't want to quit too soon, because if victory, whatever that means, is just around the corner, then it becomes really unfortunate to have given up if you've made a substantial effort, and if 5% more could have gotten you to the place that you wanted to go. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts, questions, and observations about quitting. And let's see who is here. We have great friends tuning in from around the world. Cheryl is back from Minneapolis, St. Paul. Oh, and she's complimenting me. So thank you, Cheryl. We appreciate that. Subrata is tuning in from India. Walid is here from Washington State. We've got Dara here. Allison's in Toronto. We've got David from Denver. Diana in Portugal. We've got our friend Harsha from London. Beth is also in London. You two should connect. Jennifer's in the Bay Area. We've got Stuart also from London. Wow, nice little caucus we have there. I think a London meetup for Better is in the cards. Kelsey's in Trinidad and Tobago. That sounds fun. The party's at Kelsey's place. Jeannie's in Georgia. Allison is here. Peter's up in Edinburgh. Zeke is back from San Benito, Texas. Muhammad in Atlanta, and many more. This is great. We love having all of you here. And a LinkedIn friend had a question, which is, they're saying, hi from California. For the day-to-day, what are the tactics to recognize and stop going down a rabbit hole? This is something we probably all face a lot, right? Is the question, if we are trying to accomplish something, how do we make sure that we remain focused on the most important parts, the things that actually matter, the things that actually will drive a result, rather than just sort of tinkering around the edges. I know this personally. I mean, certainly we've all done it, but I have clients, for instance, many of whom are working on things related to writing for high-profile publications. A lot of the coaching work that I do, I have an online course, is about how do you become a recognized expert in your field. And one of the best ways to do it, frankly, is to start contributing to high-profile publications. I mean, like this Newsweek show, for instance, but also in the writing process. A place where a lot of my clients get tripped up is in research. because they start to say, oh, I know I need research to back it up, so let's find the research. And then they just keep going endlessly because, well, is that the best research, or can we find better research, or is it enough? How much is enough? And you're never sure. And so I think that it's important to flip it around, because those are the types of things, and it's analogous examples where you really could go down the rabbit hole. I mean, if you're researching a particular topic, you could research until you're ready to write a book. You could spend 200 or 2,000 hours doing it. Obviously, that's not productive. So I think, quoting Stephen Covey, it's really important here to make sure that we keep the end in mind, meaning, how do you work backwards from the goal and always keep sight of that so that you are able to make sure that you're not deviating too much? So, I mean, in this example, if you're looking for research, it's not that you want to get a doctorate in a certain topic, right? Or that you want to write a book about that topic necessarily. If you're just trying to write an article and you need some stats for it, what is the fastest and most efficient way to do it? In my case, I will Google statistics on layoffs, or something like that, and just find the thing that works, not necessarily the perfect thing, but the thing that is appropriate and works. And so keeping the end in mind is always a really important strategy. So thanks for that question. When I think about quitting, I actually wrote a piece, it was over a decade ago now. I'm looking it up here, February 6th, 2012, for Harvard Business Review. And it was called When to Give Up on Your Goals. And I remember being inspired about this because, and we're getting toward the new year, right? In another 3 weeks, we're all going to be setting New Year's intentions and things like that. I'm curious, by the way, type into the chat box, do you guys set New Year's intentions? Is that a thing that you do, or are you anti? Because people have often strong opinions about this. But anyway, many of us will be setting New Year's goals, and it's usually about doing something, right? I mean, a New Year's resolution is very rarely about not doing something. So you've got these proactive goals. Yes, you're going to do this. You're going to do this. And I remember when I was thinking about goals, I had 10, 12 years ago, something that actually seemed like a good activity on the surface, right? Which is, I had a really good friend. I was living in Boston at the time, and I had a really good friend, and we would play racquetball together. And the only problem was that he was a teacher and he needed to do it before school. So we would play like 6 a.m. racquetball matches. And on one hand, it's good, right? I'm seeing my friend. That's positive. I'm working out. That's positive. But what I realized is that a good time to quit, a good time to give up on your goal, even if it's meeting other needs, is if it turns out that there are unexpected negative downstream consequences that are arising from it. And I couldn't have necessarily predicted this, but at least at that time in my life, getting up at like 5:30 in the morning was just literally not something I could do. I made myself do it because I had promised I'd meet Ben, but I was so miserable for the rest of the day. I wasn't even able to be productive because I was suffering so much because I hadn't gotten enough sleep. And finally, I realized this is wearing me down. And so I ended up having to stop doing it. So that's one of the times when I think it's appropriate to quit or to give up on your goals, is when there's adverse consequences. Another element that I discovered, this is me making all the mistakes, is when your goals impede other objectives. And I'll tell you that story in a minute. But first, I just want to say thank you for tuning in. This is Dorie Clark, and this is our weekly Newsweek interview show, Better. And we are talking today about when to quit. When do you do that? And if you are interested in tuning in more, we usually have guests. You can go to my website, go to dorieclark.com. You can sign up, get a free self-assessment, and you will be added to my email list, and you will get lots of nice messages, and you will including reminders periodically about great shows and great guests like this. Our putative guest this week is Annie Duke. She's written the book Quit: The Power of Knowing When to Walk Away, and apparently this is the moment because she ain't here. So she has quit, but I have not, and so I am here with you and excited to be joining you. And so we have wonderful friends who are tuning in. I just want to say hi to some of them. Sushma is here. Let's see. We've got Diana from Colombia joining us. Colombia, the city, not the nation. We have Sabrina from New Jersey. Deborah's in Kenya. Gabriel is in Los Angeles. Marco is in Mexico. Annette is in Washington today, even though she's normally in SoCal. Morales is here. Israel is in Spain. It's kind of complicated, but I like it. Alicia is in Berkeley. Francis is in Bogota. We love seeing all of you guys. And Cheryl actually had a great question. She wants to know, if we're playing the long game, can't we know it's ultimately a win if the action we're taking is consistent with our personal values? And I think you are hitting on something really important, Cheryl, when it comes to the questions of what should we quit, what should we give up, and what should we not, right? I mean, you've all heard the philosophical saying, which, has sort of turned into a bromide in some ways, but nonetheless is still powerful, which is, the journey is the destination, right? But if we think about it, it actually is really important in the sense that we can't, for almost all of life, right? We can't control the outcome. There are things that happen no matter how carefully we plan it. There's just pandemics that come up, things like that, and personal equivalents of pandemics. And all you can really control is the actions that you take day to day. And so making sure that and to Annie Duke's point, were she here, to Annie Duke's point, because she is a poker player, in poker, you're never guaranteed an outcome. All you can do is be smart about the percentages. And over time, if you keep making smart bets with the right percentages in your favor, you will win statistically. But on any given hand, you may lose. You don't know about that particular hand. Life is very much like that, right? That we can just take educated bets. It is true that if you exercise a lot, you may end up injuring yourself, right? That happens. You pulled a muscle or something like that. But in the aggregate, the decision to exercise is probably a positive life choice that will have beneficial impacts for you in the years to come. We have to make wagers like that about our career, about our health, about our relationships. And so it's true. The questions that we should be asking ourselves is not, do I have a guaranteed outcome? The questions that we should be asking ourselves are things like, is this in alignment with my personal values? Is it an activity that I enjoy the process of, or am I doing the right steps so that I'm giving myself the best chance for success? That's all we can do, really. But if we can tick those boxes, even if it doesn't work out in the end, we can at least feel good about what we did. We can at least feel good about the process and the fact that we executed well on that, right? We are not omniscient beings, so we give it the best shot we can. And so I promised to talk to you a little bit about the concept that I wrote about in my HBR piece, When to Give Up on Your Goals, about when your goals actually impede other objectives. And so I will tell you something that I did a number of years ago that was ridiculous. And I hope it can help you. So when it comes to setting goals, something that I was very excited about, probably a decade or more ago, was I wanted to really try to understand and master life balance, right? And you've probably all been there too, that we want to get the pieces right. So I decided that I was going to be very strategic about this. So I got myself a very nice, fancy Franklin planner, one of these sort of old school physical planners. And so I would map out my week in advance about what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. And I created an allocation, which was sort of an ideal allocation for myself, that I want to spend this amount of time on work and this amount of time on friends and this amount of time on business development activities. And I had other goals like health goals or things that were fun for me, right? Like I really like working in cafes. So I'm like, oh, well, I should make sure, X number of hours per week, I should be working in cafes. So I put it all into the planner. And what I came to realize, I did this, very methodically for months, but I realized that I was actually not having fun anymore. And now you might be different than me. It might work for you. But for me, I was so tightly scheduling myself because I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Sunday and I haven't gotten to work in a cafe. Even if I want to do something else, to meet my goal, I better go work in a cafe now. I became a sort of, martinet toward myself with this calendar. And so my goal of work-life balance was actually being eroded because I wasn't enjoying my life anymore. So that was something that I ended up quitting as a result. And so it's also true. My final point in the piece for HBR that I did, when to give up on your goals, is when your goals are no longer appropriate. And something that happened to me, and I imagine probably has happened to you as well. It's been a while because I've been working for myself now for 16 years, which is a long time. But back, we rewind in time when I was still taking jobs and things like that. There were jobs that honestly were dream jobs for me. I was applying for them, and it was, things like, being the press secretary for the Speaker of the House, in the state that I was living in, or, different things like that. I mean, actually, it's good I didn't get that, because he later got indicted. But we had these big dreams, and I applied, and of course I didn't get them. But fast forward 5 years, they were coming to me. I was literally getting offers for the jobs that, like, 5 years ago would have blown my mind. And so on one hand, it would have been such a compliment, such a validation of my previous self to be like, oh yeah, now they're coming to me and taking a job like that. But as it happened, I had moved on. And I think it's appropriate to recognize that sometimes, that, the goals that you once had, that the 20-year-old you, the 25-year-old you, the 30, the 35-year-old you, whatever it is, they're not necessarily the goals and the dreams that you have today. And so recognizing that that's changed, and recognizing that it's okay to quit sometimes, is a totally appropriate thing to do. So I'll just break in here and say, this is Dorie Clark, and this is our weekly Newsweek interview show, Better. And this week I'm interviewing myself. That's right. Because our guest, Annie Duke, is not here. She quit. So anyway, we're having a good time though. And I would love to get your thoughts, your comments, your questions. And in the meantime, we want to say hi, and if you're enjoying this, right, this nice monologue, or sort of dialogue, because you're writing into. If you're enjoying this dialogue, please feel free to hit the like button and hit the share button so that your friends can benefit. And we want to say hi to our wonderful friends tuning in. Stacy is in Queens. Sangam is in India. We have Rutex from Angola. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Hello. Fatia is in Egypt. James is here. Hey there. Hello, Chris and Jerry. We've got a LinkedIn friend from Spokane. Maureen is in New Jersey. Carl is here. We have Dora from Tampa. This is great. And Abbas is in Lebanon. We love having all of you guys here. So Gabriel has a great question. He wants to know, how would you go about speaking truth to power? This is a really great question in general. And, as I think about how it might apply to quitting, for instance, there are probably a lot of people out there who may be in a situation where you feel dissatisfied for whatever reason. I mean, for instance, maybe you are in a company where you feel like your voice is not really being heard or respected. Maybe you've tried before, you've tried a bunch of different ways to, get heard, get noticed, get on the radar, and it's not happening. And as a result, you may feel like the only option is to quit. And the truth is, sometimes that's right. I mean, unfortunately, there are bosses, there are institutions broadly, but even more specifically, there are bosses that just don't want to hear it. They're not open to it. And you may have tried, but it's not getting through. And so if that is the situation where you feel frustrated and stymied and you feel like it's not going to change, there's not a potential for change, sometimes quitting is the right answer in those situations. The one thing that I would say is that oftentimes we feel, you get sort of to the boiling point, right? That if you have tried and tried and tried a million ways, you get so angry that sometimes when you do quit, it comes out explosively. And that is really never a good move. It might be appropriate to quit because you might need to apply your talents in a different place, but quitting in an aggressive manner where it's sort of like, and now I'm going to tell you all the things. This usually is not the best strategy for making friends. Oftentimes industries are small, things get around. And if you do it in a, sort of big splashy way, that might even overshadow the validity of whatever complaints you have. I'm not saying, Gabriel, of course, that you're thinking of doing this. I'm just sort of spinning from the question that you asked. But it's an important caveat. But I do think that it's also true that sometimes we imagine that we need to quit before we do. And let me tell you what I mean by that. I actually did another piece earlier this year for Harvard Business Review about quitting your job. And specifically, the context of that was I really think that a lot of people sometimes don't even ask the questions. They assume they know the answer, right? And it might be, oh, well, our company said everyone has to come back to the office, and I don't want to come back to the office, therefore I need to quit. And, you might say, well, did you actually ask them if that's true? And they're like, no, but I know that they think blah, 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 blah. And okay, that might be true, but it's really important to ask. It's really important to stress test your assumptions, because the truth is, especially in this economy, if you are a top performer, I'm sorry to say, for the people who are in the middle, but top performers get treated differently. And frankly, they probably should, because if you are contributing exponentially more to the company, they may be so afraid of losing you that you may have the leverage that if you want to work hybrid or remote or something like that, even if the official policy is that you can't do it, they may give you leeway for something like that. So sometimes, the idea of speaking truth to power, we assume that has to be, some sort of torch carrying situation where, you're leading the oppressed masses. Sometimes, frankly, we're the ones holding ourselves back because we think something would go over so terribly, or we think we already know what they're going to say to us. And actually, the truth is we might not. So just being aware of that and realizing that there are sometimes other possibilities above and beyond needing to quit. Certainly that there's a lot of steps before you need to quit can be important and powerful. So we've got great friends tuning in. Jerry is here. Adedoyan is here. We have lots of great folks. Marnie is joining us. I see people are sharing their words for the year. This is great. If you have a word or words for your New Year's resolution, that's terrific. I have not yet figured out what mine are for 2023, but I will say that for 2022, if I can remember this correctly, it was I think I've got this. It was relaxation, monetization, and friends. Those were the things that I wanted to focus on this year. So that's great here. So we've got Linda joining in. Francis is in Bogota. We love having all of you. Jeannie's in Palm Springs. We have Christopher joining us from Cheshire, UK. Jeanette's in Chile. This is fantastic. So we've got wonderful comments coming in. Alicia says hi. She says, I tremendously enjoy quitting when I realize there's a conditioned script that I'm following about sticking with something until the end, regardless if it's draining or not. Sometimes success is making a surprise left turn. Amen to that. That's exactly right. And this is an important time of year as we are interrogating things and really trying to figure out, what do we want to do next year? I want to actually encourage you to ask a different and perhaps broader question, which is, who do we want to be next year? And then how do we take the actions to align to that? If we're following someone else's script, it becomes a lot harder to do that. So sometimes just stepping back is very powerful. So we've got Masood joining from Karachi here. And we've a great question from our friend Anna in New Hampshire. She wants to know, during our professional journey, how many resignations can we make? How many times can we quit before a hiring manager has a negative opinion of our personal and professional qualities? Yeah, really important question, Anna. And thank you for raising that, because it's true, right? There's a balance. You don't want to be so pathologically loyal in a situation that if you are being mistreated, if there's just no opportunity for advancement or growth, that you stay regardless. That's not good. But it's equally true that you don't want to be the kind of flighty or unreliable person where, at the slightest disturbance, you're quitting all the time, because that really does begin to send a wrong message to hiring managers. There's sort of a rule of thumb in general that as you get more senior in organizations, you should theoretically be staying longer. A classic example, for instance, is a college president. If you are a university president and you stay less than a decade, usually it's because something's wrong. Either you got sick, Or, maybe you got some like super killer job that nobody can turn down. Like, for instance, Jim Kim was the head of Dartmouth College and he got lured away to run the World Bank. Okay, we get it. That's cool. Or, something has kind of gone wrong. Like, you may remember Larry Summers was only the president of Harvard for 5 years because he basically made some insensitive comments and he alienated people and he got drummed out. So, but generally 10 years is how long you should, quote unquote, be a university president. And so similarly, when you're early in your career, you stay somewhere a year, maybe you stay 2 years. That's fine. That's considered appropriate because entry-level people, first of all, are pretty easy to replace. And also you're just figuring things out. You're like, oh, do I like marketing? I don't know if I like marketing. Maybe I like supply chain, whatever it is. So you're experimenting. But as you progress in your career, again, rules of thumb here, there's always exceptions, but broadly speaking, unless there's a really good reason, you should be incrementally staying longer at companies. Otherwise, if it's just, constant churn, people probably will wonder what it is that's going on here. So I will mention again, this is Dorie Clark. This is our weekly Newsweek interview show, Better. And if you want to tune in regularly, we are here every single Thursday at 12 Eastern, 9 Pacific. Usually we have a guest. This week's theoretical guest was Annie Duke. If you want to learn about her in absentia, you can go to annieduke.com. And we are here talking about knowing when to quit. And if you want to make sure that you never miss one of my LinkedIn Lives or just other LinkedIn posts, I try to have, pictures of cats and all kinds of good things. You can follow my LinkedIn profile at dorieclark.com/LI. There's apparently, I've been told, there's a bell icon that you can click to make sure that you never miss one of the updates. So as we're talking, we're coming to our denouement here about the topic of knowing when to quit. And so the last piece that I want to mention, and thank you to my wonderful chief of staff, John, who raised this as a question, is for a lot of people, when we think about quitting, right? That's the decision once you're already doing something. Do you quit or not? Something that can be very useful for all of us is to think about our upstream activities, right? Upstream, you are presented with an opportunity, and the question is, should you do it or should you not do it? And a lot of us struggle with it. We take, I know cognitively, even a request comes in, this person wants to have coffee with you, this person wants you to look at their paper or whatever it is. And it can become really taxing to figure out, and you get stressed out sometimes about saying no. And so a framework that I actually share in the long game, which some of you may have heard of, was popularized by a gentleman named Derek Sivers, an author and entrepreneur. This was actually a friend of his came up with it, and he borrowed it and popularized it. And the concept is called hell yes or no. And I think this is really important because we can save ourselves a lot of drama sometimes, and we can obviate the need to quit if we are making smarter decisions about what we say yes to in the first place. And so what that looks like is, most people are smart enough that if it's a great opportunity, they say yes. If it's a terrible opportunity, they say no. But where we get in trouble is that there's middling opportunities, right? There's like, let's call it a 5, a 6, a 7, where it's like, well, it's not, I don't really want to do it, but maybe it could be useful because of blah, blah, blah. And so we sort of make these excuses for ourselves. But the problem is the more we do that, the less room, the less space we have in our calendar to seize a great opportunity when it arises. So we have to be careful about that. And so it's often the better part of valor to make sure that unless we are a hell yes, unless this is a 9 or a 10 on the scale of awesomeness and things you're excited to do, it is often better to just say no in the first place. And that makes it less likely that we will have to quit. So I have enjoyed having this exciting monologue / dialogue with you. Thank you all for tuning in and joining me. We have been talking about knowing when to quit. This is Dorie Clark. This is our weekly Newsweek interview show, Better. And I hope you tune in next week. You can actually see a real live human besides me. It'll be amazing. But in the meantime, it's been great to have the opportunity to chat with you about this topic. And we will see you next week. Thank you.